Use my iPad to play games. Thank you.
I'd like to call the city council meeting to order, March 22nd, 2021. Turn it over to the mayor.
Beat you to it.
I see that.
I'm going to get through this quick agenda tonight, so a real short prayer. Amen. Thank you. Lord, yeah, amen. Lord, thank you for a wonderful city. Thank you for where we live. We appreciate all you've afforded us. We ask that you watch over everyone here, or watch over our city council, our staff, watch over our first responders who on a daily basis put their lives on the line. We've had a couple events for veterans that have issues with PTSD and suicide, and we ask that you watch over those that have served our country and kept us free, and those that are still serving our country and remaining a free country as we are. And we ask that you continue to watch over us and guide us, and just God bless America. We do all we do in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mayor. Kathy, will you call roll, please?
Mayor Shute.
Here.
Dutton. Ivy.
Here.
Lawrence.
Here.
Stewart.
Here.
Kyle.
Here. If anyone's in the audience that's not on our agenda, if you would like to be, please see Clerk Haley. She'll get you signed up. Mayor's report.
A few things. I do have a proclamation tonight that's not as tongue twister as the last one that Kathleen Border gave to us. So I think I can read this one. I'm going to read it slow. So, but also the Project 65 was this weekend. Had a good turnout. I don't know if you all went to the mall and saw that. But that is a project that is for veterans to prevent suicide. Did a great job in that. And their group put on a full day event. Had a lot of vendors there, so it was really, really good. And it really kind of brings home the point of what, service doesn't end for a lot of these guys in the right way. And I think all they do in their efforts to protect them is a good thing. Following this weekend is Vet Jam, also for veteran support at the mall. Henry Feeney puts this on with her group, but it's also for veteran support, and they've got it. I think it starts at 9:30 or 9 o'clock on Saturday, and it goes throughout the day. So it'll be another big event. We have, if you don't know, the big race is coming up this month. A couple more weeks, so we ask that everybody join in the festivities on the race. It's a big event for us, a big economic boom. And it's just a pretty cool deal for Sebring and Highlands County in Central Florida. It brings a lot of people here, get a lot of recognition. Last announcement I have is thanks to Dan Andrews and kind of working with the scooters. If you haven't seen the scooters around town, they're pretty cool things. He said this weekend we had 160 rides, I believe, Dan, and up to now we're up to 220 rides, and that's since Friday. And not a lot of there's a lot of social media advertising, but that's about it. So it's really kind of picked up and been pretty good. So thank you, Dan, for kind of helping out with that and getting that going and monitoring those vehicles that are left all over the city. But all right, I've got a proclamation here. And I'm going to ask Donna, I think, is it Donna Sherlock, or are you part of this I see here? So come on up here, Donna. You get to stand next to me. And Kathleen Border, so.
No, it's fine. You can make her stand up here since she won't take a picture of me.
Well, her name is on here.
I know.
I said, yeah, okay, Donna. We're going to let you give the speech, but this is a proclamation on Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month. I'm done, Ken.
I know.
All right. Whereas Ridge ARC is involved in advocating for programs that promote positive system changes that allow persons with developmental disabilities to dream, believe, and achieve their personal individual greatness. And whereas Ridge Area ARC encourages all Florida citizens to actively participate in the events that appropriately recognize and celebrate Florida's diverse population, including persons with developmental disabilities. Whereas Developmental Disability Awareness Month in March has been established to promote awareness and understanding of the opportunities, challenges, and the needs of persons with developmental disabilities. Whereas Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month also recognizes Florida's public policy accomplishments concerning persons with developmental disabilities, as well as identifying the improvements to public policy that are needed to ensure that all of Florida citizens with developmental disabilities have the capacity to lead full, productive, and engaged lives. And whereas it is necessary and appropriate that local communities such as Sebring support the mission and purpose of Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month and encourage our citizens to recognize and respect this important commemoration. Now therefore be it resolved that I, John Shute, Mayor of the City of Sebring, Florida, do hereby proclaim March 2021 as
You did so good.
Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month in the City of Sebring, and encourage all Americans to support these organizations and their noble humanitarian mission. So, thank you guys for all you do. And you want to talk about the
I
scarf?
do. I have a request. So every year we do an awareness event. We scarf bomb your downtown, and what that means is we bring scarves with little tags and wrap them around the poles, the light poles and the trees. And so people have the ability to take a scarf, and that makes them instant advocates for people with disabilities. We have in the past come back to check to make sure that there's not a scarf left, and there has never been a scarf left. But we will definitely promise that we would do that if you will allow us to scarf bomb your downtown.
Sometime during this month.
Yeah, so you tell us when. I know we kind of work around.
We'll coordinate that with events.
We will.
We've got some,
We will do that.
we got a few events coming up.
Okay, so you'll let me know?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate for what you do.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You've done pretty good.
Just don't say it
That
3
far
times
last
in a
year.
row.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, councilman's concerns, comments, liaison reports,
Nothing from me.
nothing?
No, sir.
A liaison report with code enforcement. Also, congratulate the chief there for, he had a training session for the new people in code enforcement. He and his staff, they did a good job organizing and giving the training. One other thing is the strategic plan. I know you're waiting with bated breath for a final product. We're hoping in April this month, March, end of this month, to give you a full, at least first draft of what we come up with. We're at the point now where department heads are to do objectives for, we hope 3 years, but I'll take 1 or 2, whatever, if it gets too difficult. So, but I don't think it will. They're doing a good job. So we'll be back. I know you had a question about that, Charlie. So
Yeah.
we'll be putting a workshop together, or announcing a workshop, so y'all can read it, critique it, do whatever you want with it. So I think that's it for me.
Okay. Couple of us went out to Dunkin' Donut, the north one. They had their little grand opening, myself and Charlie and Scott, and we met Mr. Bob McNeely from the food bank. If you'd like to come up and just a short introduce yourself to everybody and kind of give us a rundown.
Appreciate it. So my name is Bob McNeely. I just took over as the executive director for the Heartland Food Bank. I've been in town for just over 6 weeks, and I just am delighted. Everywhere I go, I see familiar faces, and I've been here for such a short time, and that's what I wanted. I was tired of South Florida. It was a bit too crowded, and here gives me the sense of community that I was looking for, and the ability to really make a difference in the community. So, my goals with the food bank is to become more visible, to be interactive.
Yeah.
That sounds very familiar.
Yeah.
See, in my notes, something about a
Volunteer
freezer,
with you.
right?
Yeah, my guys volunteer with you.
Perfect. We'll talk more. See, it's beautiful. I love it. It's everywhere we go. And, seeing these familiar, I've seen Scott 3 times in less than a week. Every time I show up someplace, they say, "Oh, do you know so and so?" Like, yeah, I met him last week. So I'm looking real, forward to working with you. Food insecurity sometimes is a quiet problem, it's not just the homeless people, it's your neighbor, it's your friend, it's somebody who doesn't want to tell you. So, I really want to get out there, work with different organizations, partner. I've already made relationships with CareerSource and the college to do job training and end food insecurity by getting trained in a job. And so, really looking to expand what we do there. And, Mark Stewart's done some great work for us in the past. We're looking for a couple more projects because fortunately and unfortunately, we're expanding because the need is out there. So, like I said, anything that we can do working together to help out in the city and the county, I look forward to it. I appreciate you welcoming me in.
Okay, thank you very much.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, that's all I got. We have a consent agenda. Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hold the board, please.
Ivy,
Yes.
Lawrence,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Carlisle.
Yes. Okay, there's no old business, new business. 10A, it's the Franklin Street, Lakeview Drive drainage. Mr. Fields, do you want to come and fill in?
Good evening. On August 4th, we brought the issue from the bank parking lot, the drainage issue. You instructed us to contract with Cool and Cobb for a set of plans, and we did that, and now we're, and I sent each of you an RT slip with the plans in it and the estimate. And so we believe this is the appropriate solution. So we're bringing it to you to ask your thoughts on it.
I'd like to make a couple comments.
Go for it.
Okay, there's been a lot of changes over here, and I'm going to start with West Center, and I know there was a drainage pipe put in West Center. And then also the old bank building, the drive-through teller thing was torn down, and that's now a grassy field. So that's no longer an impervious area. So I think that's going to take a lot of water there. I think a lot of things have changed over in that area, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And especially if we consider the retention pond on. And so I would advocate to put that retention pond in and then see what happens with this water during a rainy season or two before we go ahead and spend that other $75,000 for the French drain, which has some long-term maintenance challenges probably, and we may not need that. But in addition to that, I'm going to say that the CRA is looking to redevelop the waterfront area, and that drainage may tie into what they're doing or not. So I think it's premature to put the French drain in at this time. I would like to see what happens with that retention pond up on the south end, which is where the water flows. It flows from the circle down to that area, turns that bend, and then comes down Franklin. But a lot of it, and maybe enough of it, will get caught up in that retention pond there, and that's only a $25,000 fix versus the entire thing, which is a $100,000 fix. So, both of those two things that we've done, and then West Center also that we've done, we haven't really had any length of time to see what happens with that. So I'd like to go through one or two rainy seasons and see what goes on with that before we go ahead and spend that other $75,000. And that may be incorporated in the waterfront development as well. So that's what I would advocate that we do, and save that $75,000 at least at this time.
I'm curious of your response to that. Well, let me back it up.
that is-
Let me back up a second. Has the CRA been involved with this?
No.
So there, without a doubt, something's going to happen across the street,
That's my understanding.
right?
and they will have to address the retention
Right.
areas. in
And
the
so
back.
we're actually adding to that,
We are.
right?
Well, if we do nothing, we're adding to it. If we just do the retention area, we take, and I'm gonna ask Carl to come up and, he did a drainage study on this. We're gonna put a little dent in it, but
Mhm.
really to take everything, we're gonna have to do the entire project. But, you know, I don't know that there's
So,
a
but-
right or wrong answer.
Yeah, so the premise is that everything may change across the street. And I'm just concerned, like Charlie is, that we're not planning properly because we don't know what's gonna be across the street. So the CRA is working on that right now. They're bringing the public and all of us in to discuss, you know, the concept. And it makes sense to me that we would not do all of this until we knew what was happening with the waterfront district.
What this does is this keeps the water from getting to West Center and eventually behind the Civic Center. That's
But
what
aren't you
this
tying
project
into
does.
some of those drain lines
No.
in the water, in,
No,
you're not?
No.
this is its own separate contained system.
Okay,
Yeah, we originally started going down that path, we
Right.
talked about it.
Right.
And
that's been
Carl
changed.
came up with a plan that eliminates taking it across the street
Okay.
into that retention area.
Well, that,
Which was a big concern about
Mhm.
the development, so we went back to the drawing board and Carl came up with this and, it
So-
keeps everything in that area.
okay, so if there is a very large development that happens in the waterfront area, this will not impede any of that?
No,
Okay, well, you answered my question, thank you.
Well, this actually will take, keep water from going there.
yeah, Carl found something interesting when he did his study.
Okay, well, Carl, explain it to us.
Okay. I'm Carl Cool with Cool and Cobb Engineering. Thank you for being here. What we did was, what you saw was about the fourth draft of options that we looked at. And we did talk about going in there and making modifications to the drainage system that's behind the Art League. And that's a permitted system. When we met and discussed with Water Management District, modifying a permitted existing system is complicated. It's a modification. You gotta redo everything on that. So we backed off from that. And what we did was divide the water up. The water that comes down Ridgewood Drive now comes down and it makes a very sharp corner right at Franklin. So what we're doing is trying to capture that water and put it in the retention pond right by on the city property, right next to the tattoo parlor, and a retention pond that's there. Capture that water. The water that we can't capture there is the water that runs off the old bank building and the old bank building parking lot, and then some of the parking lots that's north of the old bank building. That water comes down to Franklin, and if you don't capture it and put it into the French drains as we have designed, it will go north down Franklin, hit Center, and go west. So whatever we do, we're going to reduce the flow that's going down Center. And by reducing that, the development over in the Art League area and the city property over there, it will be easier. If we don't capture it up the hill and let it soak in the ground up the hill, somebody will have to deal with it down the hill. So, but if Charlie's idea is good, if we put the retention pond in next to the tattoo parlor, we will, no question in my mind, we will capture some of that water and it'll soak in the ground rather than running directly into the lake. Now, the water that comes off the old bank building roof and the old bank building parking lot, we will not be able to capture that. It's like two phases. But if they get ready to do development over along the lakeside and they realize they got too much water to deal with, you could come back and put the French drains in on the west side of Franklin Street as a second phase to what we've done. So what we've got could easily be split into two phases, and you don't hurt anything by doing it. But the more you do, and by keeping the water from going down beside the library and beside the little theater and behind the Civic Center, the more that you can keep that in the water, because that water down there gets very, very, very little treatment. It just cascades right into Lake Jackson. So once you
get to Center Street, it's pretty much in Lake Jackson, so we were trying to get as much as we could in the ground before it gets there.
And just to mention, all that water that comes and whips around that corner, it's actually coming from the circle down Ridgewood and making it around that corner. So it's quite a bit of water.
Charlie mentioned maintenance on French drains. Explain that.
Go ahead.
Okay. French drains, it's pipes in the ground and in rock. And around this area, there are oak trees and other trees. And they go in this French drain. And in a while, the water will get, the perforated pipe that's in there will get debris and it'll clog up. And you'll have to clean it from time to time. The retention pond next to the tattoo parlor will be open, it'll be grassed. You can see it if it fills up. And there'll be a little bit of maintenance to that, but not much. But to do the French drains and maintain those, you'll get leaves and stuff that go in there, and it will become less effective in the years to come.
But it is 36-inch pipe, and there are manholes to make it easy for us to clean out. So that's a big deal for us to be able to get in there and use cleaning equipment.
And you rather do that than do another retention pond?
I don't know what the flows are, but
Well, if you do another retention pond, you're gonna lose parking. So your staff was asking us to consider the under drain pipes so you didn't lose parking.
Okay.
The maintenance of a retention pond is absolutely easier than the maintenance of a French drain, but you're gonna lose parking if you do it.
Right, okay.
or some of your field that we sodded irrigation.
And I like the idea of doing this. I'm gonna somewhat concur here from a perspective of, we don't know what the CRA is gonna do with the waterfront project yet. So my question is, are they gonna do anything with this lot as well? If they're gonna do something with that lot other than parking, so if they were gonna bring some structures or something like that up there, then we perhaps might not want to have French drains under some structures, if that's what they were planning on doing. So.
That's the first I've heard of that premise.
So I don't know, and I don't know, but if they were planning on doing something with waterfront and expanding further up to this area.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if not, then, we could do it in 2 stages, but, are we gonna asphalt this area that we didn't do and we haven't done yet
We were waiting for this.
until we got this?
Right.
But that's still usable at the present time if we do nothing with that asphalt. So, I mean, I know it's been that way for years and years and years,
Well, from the guy who sold it to us.
and so, yeah, waiting a year on that to see how this goes, to me, would be a logical thing to do.
Well, I'm in agreement with Charlie on this. I think it's a good idea to put the drain field in and see what happens.
The drain fill or the?
I mean, the
Retention
retention
pond.
pond.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's not gonna cost any more to wait, so.
Yeah, let's save some money and see what happens.
Yeah. Well, I'd make a motion then that we go ahead and do the retention pond and hold off on the French drain and see what happens.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? Anyone in the audience? Yes, sir. Come on up.
Are we gonna finish the irrigation on the?
You have to come up and introduce yourself. We don't know who you are.
I know. Dan Andrews for the record. I'm just wondering if, since we're gonna put off doing the French drain, if we can maybe instruct to have the irrigation finished and the islands between the parking lots redone. They're just kinda unsightly when we have everybody there for the farmer's market, so it'd be nice to have those finished.
Yes.
That would
I
be-
understand
Yes.
not repaving,
Yes,
but
because this plan, if we go forward with the other plan, in the future, it'll only encompass a little bit of the islands that jut out, and that might be a head or two,
Yeah.
it's not a big deal, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just so everybody understands, and I don't know how well you analyze this, those French drains are actually buried where that parking lot is now.
Right.
So as you're driving down the parking lot from Franklin to Lakeview,
Mhm.
it's underneath that parking lot.
Well, we're not talking about putting the asphalt on that parking lot now, are we? And then digging it up if we decide to put a French
No,
drain in?
No.
We would wait.
Okay,
Yeah.
cause we don't wanna do that, obviously, so I would put the irrigation in and just let it go.
Yeah.
Okay,
Could we do, what would it cost to like do like a sealant on it
So
to
I was
make it look
gonna
nice?
let probably maybe $1,000, maybe a little less.
to do what?
Seal it.
Seal
Blacktop.
Just
Blacktop
seal the
it.
blacktop.
Just
Yeah.
like they do out there.
Yep,
front of
Yeah.
City Hall.
Yeah,
from time
It
to time.
helps.
yeah,
yeah.
That way it makes it more
absolutely,
nice.
And it looks good.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll get prices.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you can reline it that way too, for the lines on.
So does that need to be part of our motion, or?
I
Okay.
don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, there was one other question though that I had, and I had talked with Scott today about the, and that's on the bid of the $25,000 part for the retention, and that is the cost to remove the excess material. And that just seemed pretty expensive, $7,000 to cart away what's gonna be about 40 loads of dirt. And, that's, give or take about $170 a load. That's about what I pay if I get dirt delivered to me. And for them to charge us that much to take it away, we were wondering if you could do that cheaper, that part of it cheaper.
Is this
Yeah.
this is a contract with them?
It's a
though?
contract,
It's a
yeah.
contract, and this is and they were low bidder on this contract, so we need to stick with them.
So we can't just pull that one part out, I guess is what I'm asking.
And
It just
for us,
seems to
you're
me
talking
to
about us
be,
doing it, Charlie?
well, it seems to me that they could sell that for $170 a load is what I'm getting at, and they're charging us $170 a load to carry it away. They're making $350 a load off that. That's pretty,
Well, it's not clean fill.
I don't know that.
I would think that it
From the
isn't.
surface level, it
Yeah.
seems like it, but I don't know what's
Yeah.
underneath it. But does that not seem reasonable to you guys, or what do you think?
Contractors don't like you to cherry pick. They're liable to walk off.
Okay,
Well, this is the contract price, and
Yeah.
all of the jobs they do for us, I'm sure that's the same dollar figure,
Yeah.
based on the contract that we sign with them.
We could see if we could keep some of that fill.
Uh-huh.
We need fill from time to time, so that might be something we could do. I don't know how much that would affect the price if we.
Yeah. Well,
be
it's
worth it.
it's worth
So,
They're gonna
I'll
char-
talk to Tal about it.
They're gonna charge you to haul it one way or the other.
Well, that's really the thing, is it's the hauling charge, it's the man hours.
right,
They got figures for the truck,
Right.
hours to run the truck, all that
right.
stuff.
No, I understand the hauling part of it, but
So-
what I'm saying is that, you know, they dump it somewhere else. And, I mean, chances are they're selling it to somebody else, somewhere else too. And maybe that's part of their contract price, and maybe they're figuring that in, and maybe that's true, but I would at least ask.
Good, I definitely will.
Okay, well, we have a motion and a second.
I didn't get to make a motion, I'm sorry, I was writing.
Charlie made the motion,
Okay.
Mark seconded.
Okay, sorry about that.
Any more discussion? If not.
Ivy,
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes?
Stewart,
Yes.
Carlisle.
Yes. No business from the audience?
Yes, sir.
No business from the audience. City attorney?
None, sir.
None? Wow. City administrator?
So, in light of our short meeting, I just wanted to talk a little bit about special events. We're gonna have, I think, 3, maybe 4 special events on council's next agenda. In that, a couple of them are going to be fairly significant. All 4 of them are actually gonna be pretty significant events, but 2 of them are gonna have some significant costs. One of them is the Integrity Multisport Triathlon event. That's the one that the TBC brought. We're looking at roughly right now, from my calculations, about $35,000 in expenses between city staff, county staff, and that encompasses everything from public works to law enforcement. That does not include EMS, if you will, which may be another 1,000 or so on top of that. As a means of comparison, the Heartland Tri last year, or the year before last year, we didn't have it last year, was roughly $16,000 in costs. And I don't believe the county charged at that time. Matter of fact, I do have a charge for the Heartland Tri this year from the county, and it's gonna look like it's closer to 20,000. So, I know we wanna encourage events, but I think I'd like to see, some guidance, or maybe we workshop it or something from a perspective of events and, what events, we want to see, how we, whether or not we have some type of financial commitment to those events, or whether we expect, those event organizers to bear the entire cost. In the past with the Heartland Tri, we've done a 50-50 cost share. Is that right, Dan?
Yes, sir.
Each year?
Yes, sir.
I don't, I know this is a big number for the gentleman that I spoke to, for Integrity Multisports. I think he's gonna be looking for assistance, to that number. We've got a 5K coming. Those numbers aren't gonna approach anywhere near these numbers, but just in general, the jet ski event is not gonna be a big number event. We've already met with them. Most of the expense in the jet ski event is essentially gonna be EMTs. We're gonna be able to set a lot of that event up front, and then they've got some staff that are working the grounds, and then they've got some staff that are working the water. So I just wanted to get, some council impressions and input, and then maybe, if you think that it's something that we should deal with.
Well, these events are already
These
booked.
events,
They're booked. And
they're
coming.
booked. They're booked, and
So,
they're coming. I mean, a couple of these events, I'm going to say, we didn't get, the inquiry didn't come to us first.
right.
But I think they're good events. The jet ski event's going to be really neat. I mean, they're set up, everything. It's going to be right off Vets Beach.
Mhm.
They're going to use the existing Vets Beach as the area for people to view the event, our citizens, and anybody else who comes into the event. And it's going to run parallel to the beach. It's going to be pretty neat.
Yep.
But I just wanted to, at least talk about it. I want to take the time now, since we don't have those folks in front of us.
Well, have you got a list of demands or requests from them, or what? What are they asking for?
He has not, this gentleman hasn't made a request.
Mhm.
I just know that the number kind of shocked him a bit.
So he
and-
got a
and
number from
the,
us.
Part of the reason, yeah, I'm coordinating all the numbers, so I
Right.
get the numbers from the county.
Right.
And I've supplied him with the numbers.
Yeah.
Part of the difficulty with the triathlon, and I don't know, Dan might be able to speak better to this, but when they do triathlons on the coast, let's say, well, the water events out in the ocean, I don't think they man them to the same extent that we're manning that event. The feedback we get is people like to come to our event because we do man it so well.
Sure.
But that comes with a cost.
Right.
So those are it's kind of the discussion I wanted to
Mhm.
have, and it's not just these events, because some of these may become recurring events. That
Yes.
jet ski event,
And hopefully
they only do it
yeah.
7 or 8 times a year.
Mhm.
That particular tour, it's all over the country.
Right.
It's not just Florida. They
Yeah.
do it in different areas of the country.
I think there's a multitude of other events we haven't even heard about as well.
Yeah.
So,
So I'm a proponent for helping in any way that we can, all of these things.
Well, Scott, you said you got numbers from the county, they don't help? Is it all gonna be put on us?
so, I can only speak from a perspective, and Dan may be able to speak better to it, but in the past, I know what we call our public works, or, MOT, road and bridge perspective, they have done that with staff, and I don't believe they've charged Dan for those expenses. So this year, with all of the other events coming, I think they're getting pressure to do so,
Mhm.
whether that's from commissioners or whether that's from, staff, because, their budgets are getting tighter as well.
Mhm. So you're asking us to comment on something we don't have information on. So it's very difficult to do that. We need to know what events exactly they are and how much they're looking for and how is it gonna be dispersed theoretically. And when you have that stuff, then we can talk about it. But right now, this is a moot conversation.
I think we have that stuff.
We don't have it,
Oh,
Dan, so,
Right. And,
sorry.
and I agree. You don't have these specific events, but they will be coming for you shortly.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you'll see those. I just, I feel like.
Well, what do you want us to say right now? I mean, what kind of,
Let me make a comment. if I
please,
could, Mark.
yeah.
I'm 100% for these events because I think they bring visitors to the city, they bring revenue to the city, and a lot of these people come back in other times, other areas. So I'm 100% in favor of these events. I can split them up in my mind in two different ways, one being nonprofit organizations that run them, and the other one being profit organizations. But in any event, there's maybe what we should look at is say, let's go ahead and maybe come up with some kind of budget figure in our minds collectively and say we could spend, and I'm just going to throw a couple numbers out, $50,000 a year or $100,000 a year to help special events and put that in our budget, and then we can figure out how to split that up. And we don't have to use it all, but if some organization wants to come up, like Dan says, hey, we need some help with the triathlon, it brings a lot of business. We've got a budgeted amount that we can say, okay, we can put, $10,000 for this. Or if it's another event that we like, that we think is going to bring revenue and whatnot, then we can say, okay, we can spend $10,000 on that, or we can spend $5,000 on this event. But at least we've got some, I'm going to call it a chunk of money that we can say, hey, we've got that. Instead of coming up on an individual basis, this stuff's not in our budget right now, for the most part, and so it's special consideration each time. But at least we'd have something to work with then, and that would encourage other organizations possibly to say, hey, I can go to Sebring, they got a little bit of budget money, maybe we could get a little bit of it. Maybe we should have that soda festival over there. So, but it gives us something to work with. So.
Well, I like the idea of the budget perspective, and Penny and I have talked about this, that we ought to have a place in our budget where we allocate for special events, so you know how much money you're spending on special events, if you will. You get the GFNY event, but all of these events, if we could do something like that, I think.
Yeah, sounds
we-
logical.
We've got history on events, so I have a historical cost. I gotta have a rough idea of what these events cost.
Mhm.
So, and I know which events are recurring events each year. So, we can put something together from that perspective.
Right.
To give you an idea, from a budgeting perspective,
Mhm.
What we might be looking at
Sure.
on an annual basis. But, what I can't predict is the new events that come to us.
Right.
Right.
I think the TDC funded only one of these so far. It's my understanding. And I'm not sure where the money's coming for the others. And I also understand that the organizers were, for at least two of them, were footing the bill themselves. And how they're doing that, I don't know. Maybe that was prior to them getting the numbers from the county and the city. But that was what we were told with the Tourist Development Council.
Yeah, and I saw the budget that was put together for the integrity multisport triathlon thing.
Right.
And his numbers are different than, the numbers I have.
Sure.
But, he's budgeting based upon what he typically may spend, perhaps, at a triathlon event. And just so that everybody knows, I think everybody here knows this already, but, and you know this for sure, the TDC dollars can only be utilized for, marketing type expenses, stuff
Right.
like that, and they're
Right.
reimbursement dollars. So it's not like they get a set amount of money that they could theoretically move around towards operations, event, or anything of that nature. It's a reimbursement.
Correct.
So they have to show where they spent the money in order to get that reimbursement.
Okay.
And so-
They don't get sponsors for some of the stuff like this jet ski thing that they don't
I
have.
think they,
Oh,
no,
I'm
they
sure
do.
they do.
They
They
do.
do.
That's what pays for
Absolutely
the
they
biggest
do.
part of it, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, right.
You know, and
And-
entry fees, and, I mean, if it's a profit-making organization,
Right.
they're gonna
Typically-
charge a couple $100 for an
Yeah.
entry fee, times
Right.
1,000. You know, yeah, they got a budget to work with too.
Right.
But if we can help them in some
Yeah, I think
regards
that-
to
Yeah,
come
we-
here instead of the city up the road or something.
Part of the difficulty here is some events just are a lot more labor intensive
Yeah.
on the city than other events.
Right, right.
I'd like to make a comment here.
Go
I think.
ahead.
Yeah, I'm listening to the conversation, and, I'm gonna be the workshop guy, But I think you need a workshop where we come up with a policy, we set criterias that, you had mentioned a couple of them, Charlie, set criterias for these events, then have a contingency for, if we didn't figure out that criteria. But I think we need a policy. We know what's coming now, but we don't know what's coming in the future. So what do we gotta do? Talk about this every time. So I think we need a policy from the city about these things. Other people can read it that are coming here, that are giving the events, and maybe we can standardize it a little bit with some contingency, because it's not all gonna be the same. But that's my suggestion. I don't think up here we're gonna give enough guidance
Yeah.
to the administrator to really come up with what we need.
So I know that the Tourist Development Council, when they funded the last large event, was the GFNY event, the return statistically was 10 times what they sponsored it, which is, and that money went to restaurants, hotels, of course, gas stations, and it was dispersed throughout the community. So, there's a trickle-down concept with tourism that affects everybody in the community. And another really advantageous thing of these events is it opens people's eyes to this area, and they spend their money and they go home. Now, what really happens is many of them see Highlands County and they like it, and I can't tell you how many people at the hotel came for some type of event and now live here. So it's healthy for us to do this, and it is expensive, but I think there's a return typically on every bit of investment that we put into tourism.
And perhaps we could look at other communities. I did inquire with Casey. I said, how do they do this in other communities? And she said, she doesn't really know. She does know that the city of Ocala has put a lot of effort behind it from a perspective, and I think, from a financial perspective, in being very event friendly, and they now have lots of events in
Right.
Ocala.
Yeah.
So it obviously merits, a
Well,
lot more
I
discussion
like-
than we're having here,
Yeah.
and
I like the idea of having a workshop as well, so we can have something in front of us that we can see and make that determination. I'm not sure if I like putting a budget number on it, because it's gonna make you money, whatever you spend. So I'm not sure we should limit it to a certain dollar figure, because if it's a successful event, it's gonna make money.
Well, I would just further that though a little and say, we have, I'm gonna say Parks and Recreation, if you will, and this is really recreation. And, we have a budget for parks every year, not just necessarily pulled out of the main budget, but, this is recreation. And people want something to do around here. I wish I had $1 for every time I heard some kid say there's nothing to do around here. Well, guess what? That jet ski thing, there's something to do that weekend. The kids can go over there and they can watch it. And you know, next weekend, they're gonna all be out on their jet skis trying to do what those guys did out there, but it's recreation. And it brings people to our community. And I'm gonna go further and say that, you know, it's okay for us to be the backyard of the people on the coast. So let them come over in their backyard and play, and then go over there and go back home and work and make some money, and then come back over here and spend some of it, you know? So I think it's a great thing, and I would really like to see us incorporate as much of this as we can. There may come the time when we say, okay, we've had enough, like some of the coastal cities on spring break said, hey, we've had enough at some point, but we're so far from that, it's not even funny. So, but I think it'd be great to have a lot of people come over here and use Sebring and use this area as their backyard, their playground, if you will. So, I think it's great, and I think that we should look at it, and maybe a workshop would be the way to do it. So, set up a workshop for us, Kurt.
Okay, Mikey, you'll do that.
So do we want a workshop prior to the next meeting, or no?
They're gonna be cutting that
I
close.
think,
Yeah.
This is gonna be
you
another
would be
swag,
trying
I
to
think,
fit
at
an
this
awful
one,
lot
so.
of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we got the races coming up and all that
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
So.
All right.
And just as a reminder, that next meeting, as I know you all know, but for the public, it's gonna be at 3 o'clock.
I was gonna announce that,
Oh, okay.
but
I'm
that's
sorry.
okay.
Is it 3 or 3:30?
3.
3, okay.
I'll put an ad in the paper too.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Charlie.
I mean, you have, you know, a lot of these events now too are, like Mark had said, is they know what they bring to the community. Dan, he tracks hotel rooms and where the people come from, and what, 75% come from outside the county? 92%, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's ever since I stopped.
That's a crazy
going, but
number. Really, it's crazy.
It's huge, so you look at that, and that's at least a 1 night and 2 night deal.
Yeah.
But it doesn't count the people that are coming during the week in training. You know, you
Yeah.
get people all the time that are coming from out of town, and they're riding the routes, and they're swimming the lake, and they're doing this kind of stuff. So they're day trips for people, but events like that, with the GFNY, those people kept pretty good records on that. I mean, that was at least a week long, and some of the teams came even before that to train. So we can see that, and I think, you know, and I think a kind of a round budget number, but also to base it on, say, you know, with the Heartland Triathlon, if this is what it brings to the community, instead of saying a 50%, we may do more than that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then break it down, and, you know, to where other events may not bring that same amount, so you kind of back it off to that. But the events that come from out of town or bring people, they're pretty in tune to tracking this now. So
Mhm.
so there's a lot of information that we can get off of
Yeah.
it.
So the areas that are most profoundly affected right now by these events are the industries that have been the most affected by COVID. Restaurants and hospitality.
Right.
So
Hotels.
we need to be proponents of this.
And I'm just gonna go one step further and say I'm glad that Florida has opened up for people to have their events down here. So, not just Sebring, but Florida in general.
I think that's why the jet ski event was looking at Florida,
Yeah.
Right.
in Central Florida.
Come on up, Dan.
So we're all on the council agenda for 2 weeks from now, but it doesn't sound like we have
Good luck.
a plan. So
Yeah.
I think that might be some of the reason Scott was bringing this up today, but do we need to push our agenda item off another month until we workshop this, or, I
So,
mean,
I don't understand. You don't have a plan for what?
no, we have 4 events, 4 different events are gonna be coming before
Right.
city council in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But we just said we're gonna workshop how we're gonna handle those.
In the future.
In the future, not this
Yeah, we
time.
can't-
Okay, so we're just gonna handle those on the spot?
You're
Yeah,
right.
we're gonna
2
deal
weeks
with it
from
when
now.
you get here.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
We know how to say no.
We're-
Tell me sooner than later. Let everybody go elsewhere.
Okay. All right. No, it sounds good. Anything else? Okay. Well, our next meeting will be at 3 p.m. on March the 16th, right? Okay. We have, the only thing left is approve the bills.